Um, I intend to talk for a while about me as an empirical individual. Um, I am very often very critical with myself. I have been very critical because that's the way I function, but also because I'm aware of a lot of problems that I see in me, and yeah, but um, I will not um, praise myself as an empirical individual for the sake of whatever, but simply sometimes I need confidence, confidence in me and in my ability, me as an empirical individual, as an individual acting agent, acting man, and I will say I have said a lot of negative things about me over the years. Uh, I will say positive things. I've watched often videos, psychological help by an ASMR content creator, Sherry Lorraine. She's really top quality woman in terms of the ability to help others. She's really, really great, really great. There are few uh, ASMR content creators who are really great in terms of psychological people who are women usually who are actually psychologists in a way. There are a lot of ASMR channels, but those who provide really top psychological pieces of advice, it's rare, of course, because it's top quality, but there are some who are really excellent, and it has helped me a lot. And yeah, yeah. So if I think about myself as an empirical individual, Luca, and the things that I've been doing at various moments in my life. So the purpose of this video will be for myself and maybe for others who at some moment might be interested, will be to assess myself in a way. And I have a tendency uh, to doubt myself. I'm very critical and very I doubt myself as an empirical individual. I do not have a lot of self-confidence very often, but So I will try to find inner confidence by just listing some of the things that I have done, achieved, produced as an empirical individual. If I imagine myself just as this singular individual human being, just me in relation to my individual psychology, if I think like a normal individual human being, one might say, um, in school, up until high school, I was really an excellent student. I worked significantly. I was very dedicated, at least until 14 years old, probably. I would later learn that, of course, school results they are partly influenced by IQ, over which the individual has no influence whatsoever. It's partly genetic, partly due to environment. So when you learn this, you kind of become indifferent in a sense. There is no need to pride yourself, or to, if you have had bad results in school, there's no need to be ashamed in a way, because, depending on other factors, but there's a significant part over which the individual has no sovereignty whatsoever, because the level of intelligence, to the extent that it determines school results, which is not always the case. There is a correlation, but not, yeah, but it's determined. So, yeah. But I had very good, I was a very good student up until the age of 14 years old. Then, well, in high school, I was still good in some aspects, but I was not really interested. That's increase in hormonal activity during teenage years. Uh, yeah, yeah, that's a negative aspect when you have talent in a way in whatever endeavor. Sometimes you become a little bit lazy because of the talent, which is of course not a good psychological characteristic. Yeah, but uh, then in my early adult years, I might say, when I really lived trapped, my life was kind of a waste and kind of a, well, for 4 years there were moments of, there were ups and downs, but overall it was difficult and, well, but still I wrote a good articles, and I collected data in a really systematic way, and I kept learning English. I haven't studied English since age 16, when I left high school, except for 1 year. So my level of English, in a way, that's the level of English of a high school dropout. Eminem and Christopher Nolan have taught me English, mostly. No, not only, but mostly. The yeah, and when I resumed my uh, studying at age 21, I was really dedicated because it was interesting, and I wanted to learn, and I was really dedicated. I had excellent results in mathematics. I made I studied a lot the other topics, and when I had the opportunity to interact with persons per phone because it was at a distance. I asked relevant questions. I was dedicated. I studied thoroughly. I had excellent results in mathematics. I I studied a lot, and I started to read a lot outside of class. I mean, it was at home, but outside of the official school program, I read a lot. I was I had a lot of intellectual curiosity. I read great books. Yeah. Um, well, then in 2016, when I started my intellectual awakening, one might say, I did not achieve anything of note as such because I spent for 2 years, let's say, I spent most of my days reading books, watching videos. So it was not work in the sense of rigorous study or 9 to 5 jobs, but actually I dedicated myself fully to studying in a way, but it was an extremely active phase in a sense. It was kind of chaotic in a sense that there was an enormous amount of information. There was no it was very dynamic. I jumped from one topic to the other in a matter of a few days, few weeks, few months. So it was very intense, very. I really spent most of my days studying, and it was a really weird type of study because there was no planned order. It was not studying in a sense of having a program to follow rigorously. I just discovered new knowledge, like a bee in a flower field, from one flower to the other, discovering new things. It was really an intellectual exploration, constant for 2 years. And I did not produce anything of note as such from a achievement point of view because I did not write or I did write, but it was fragmentary. These were just notes that I wrote randomly when some thoughts popped up in my mind. So I did not. I had no intention to even produce anything because I was gathering constantly new knowledge. But yes, so it was extremely intense. But actually, a lot of the intelligent things that I've said or done or written or achieved since, they are an indirect consequence of this intense training program that I went through for between 2018 between August September 2016 and August 2018, one might say. Yeah, an enormous amount of my ideas, they come from the knowledge that I gathered during these 2 years of intense study. And there were moments because I have had tendencies to be chaotic for a long time in my daily life, but because sometimes because I had difficult psychological, it was difficult psychologically because in terms of lack of self-confidence and yeah, but in most of our moments I was kind of chaotic because I was very dynamic in a way. So that's the kind of chaotic movement that here highly not always but sometimes highly intelligent or intellectually gifted people have. There are those who are hyper rigorous, but those who are in a way a little bit chaotic, but in a way in a creative sense. They constantly, their mind is constantly buzzing with new ideas, new perspectives. So they are very active intellectually because they have a high level of intelligence or creativity. It happens for a lot of people, sometimes autistic people, not all of them, because autistic people usually, those who have Asperger, they often need to be very rigorous, very focused on specific topics of interest. But there are those also who are like bees, flying around from one flower to the next, exploring, constantly moving, etc. Yeah. So, but also with these phases, which sometimes lasted a few weeks or a few months of kind of disorder in daily life, because most of my time and energy was focused in reading books, watching videos, and just picking, reading a few pages here and there, then jumping to another book, another topic, starting a book but not finishing the book because another interesting idea popped up. So for a long time, my life has been chaotic in this sense of hyper intellectual activity, but also there have been very often moments of discipline, even in my years of complete isolation, where for many weeks, many months in a row, I was very disciplined in my ability to do sports every day, to have a disciplined lifestyle, the ability to produce physical efforts on a consistent basis. Yeah, so nothing exceptional, but just for very long periods of my life during my years of social isolation, the very few times when I went out, it was sometimes for many weeks, many months, to have consistent daily training of health, exercise, etc. Yeah. Or bodybuilding. I mean, I did not do bodybuilding, but training. Yeah, but bodybuilding in a way. I used to do this at various moments in my life, for while being very consistent for many months. But then I I stopped, and then I started again many months later. But when I started, I was extremely consistent and very disciplined in the sense. So intellectually and physically, I have had the ability to be very disciplined, sometimes chaotic, for various intervals. Yeah. And then in the second half, after August 2018, I really started to put a lot of discipline in my daily life, diet, sports, reading, studying in a really serious way, being really serious and dedicated for many months. Then there was a psychological event which affected me a lot negatively, when I say. But then in the year 2019, I was dedicated, but in a chaotic way. But I spent my days studying fanatically for the first few months. Then, when I had my accident, the reason was because I had a sense of responsibility and duty, and I tried to share what I believed I had to share, and to I was willing to sacrifice my physical health, one might say, in a serious way, to promote my ideas. So yeah, it was a courageous decision. I'm not sure it was very smart, or very. It was a kind of I was under a lot of pressure, and I did. It was kind of well, but I tried to prove to others that I was kind of serious and willing to take personal risks physically to to do what I believe was my duty. Yeah. And then after my accident in the year 2019, I had to recover for 5 months, and then later still, but for 5 months intensely in hospital, I had to recover from a broken back and broken feet, but especially a broken back. So I had re-education training at least 2 hours a day, during which, as often as I could, I read metaphysics and logic to gather knowledge, and the rest of the day, most of the day, I studied, and I started to produce content under a lot of psychologically difficult condition, because I was in hospital. That was the physical situation, which was difficult, psychologically as well. Intellectually, it was confused, but I tried nonetheless. So during the year 2019, I was very dedicated. I did things which could be considered clumsy in a way, but I was very dedicated. Yeah, and I recovered extremely quickly from a physical standpoint. Probably, of course, it was because of young age, and I had a good health before the accident. But I recovered at an extremely fast pace after a kind of a serious physical trauma. So I learned how to walk again very quickly. Yeah, yeah. Then the year 2020, when my purpose was to become socialized and to eventually become a productive member of society. Uh, the first 6 months, I started to resume studies again, and I was very dedicated. Um, but then I understood that I had to find another way to get a diploma, which I did eventually. So the second half of 2020, I started a training, a high school level, but an alternative training. And for a year, there were, I think, 12 hours of study per week for a year, which I attended, I think, all of them. Yeah, I was very consistent, very dedicated, and I had exceptional grades. I was really seriously dedicated to getting this diploma, which was the equivalent of probably high school graduation, but for adults. I had exceptional grades. There were four topics: history, French, English, and mathematics. I had exceptional grades in all four topics. I was very dedicated, a very serious student during the lectures, but also at home. I did my work, which paid off because I had exceptional results. But other than that, because I had a relative amount of leisure, because I had only 12 hours of lectures per week, plus the homework that I did spontaneously. But other than that, I used my leisure to read on my own, to keep studying variously, not the same topic that I had previously, metaphysics, etc., but the sciences. So indirectly, the knowledge that I've kept gathering, I do not consciously know what I learned when, but it's part of the culture that I have accumulated over the years, because in the year 2020, I kept reading as often as possible. And also, I played video games during my leisure. Yeah, yeah. So I got, in 2021, I got the diploma with exceptional grades, exceptional remarks of consistency, dedication, seriousness, competence. Yeah. And then, while having, during all this time, to keep my re-education once a week, approximately, physical and psychological to keep the recovering in a way. Yeah. And the year 2021, the second half, I joined a training program to become an accountant. The first 4 months, there were broadly 40 hours of lectures per week, so it was very intense. I was skeptical at first. I thought that I would not be able to cope suddenly with a lot of new, having to learn a completely new field, a lot of an extremely intense training. It was a 1 year, 40 hours of lectures each week plus homework, etc. But actually, I had exceptional results. I was extremely dedicated. I was intellectually interested and interesting. I had exceptional results. I studied a whole lot of completely new topics, of which I had no really interest on a. It was I didn't want to have an exciting job. I wanted to have a boring job to be able to eventually later in my life, as I envisioned this, to dedicate more time to do interesting things. But I needed to have a. I envisioned I needed to have a boring job just to have an income. So yeah, but so I was not interested in most of the topics as such, but I was extremely dedicated nonetheless because studying is always interesting, and I was serious and I had exceptional results. Uh, Here, I don't want to brag, but really there was a moment where I was really kind of proud of myself. There was how they call this algorithm in computer programming. I started this for the first time to study this the first time in my life. I had a correct, good grade the first time, but I was a little bit pissed off. And the second time, I had the best grade because I had worked really a lot to improve. It was exceptional. It was impressive. So I was quite proud. It was programming that I had studied this for a few weeks, but I had on my second try I had an exceptional result. So I was kind of kind of satisfied. Yeah. Uh, yeah. But other than that, I had really exceptional grades in all topics of study. I was dedicated in all topics, even those that I didn't find really interesting. I made an effort to be dedicated, and I had good grades, very good grades, and a lot of dedication. I worked. I worked during the weekends. Yeah. Then I there was a how do you call it, a stage where you had to practice on a professional level. For the first time, for 3 months, I worked. I was very competent, very dedicated, very serious, very efficient. While during the time of pause, I kept studying economics, evolutionary psychology, history, and various topics. So I was extremely dedicated. I willingly overworked. I had to work 35 hours a week. I willingly worked longer. Uh, I was very efficient. When I encountered a difficulty, I adapted and I solved the problem. I was really competent. Yeah. And then the events of February 2022. Uh, Again, I felt that I had to share my knowledge and to become public, one might say. And ever since that moment, it's been 20 months in a row, I have been extremely dedicated. I have worked uh, as much as I reasonably can every day for 20 months. There have been days, a few days here and there where I really rest, but it means it's difficult to really work consistently because my brain is hyperactive. Psychologically, it's very difficult with the pressure, the news, etc. It is very exhausting, etc. So there have been days here and there. I take a few days to rest, but usually when I do this, I keep reading books most of the day nonetheless. But sometimes I take a few days where I unplug myself and I just rest by being just resting in a sense, reading less demanding books that I enjoy just for my personal enjoyment, which in a way eventually I use later because I read very good books even when it's for entertainment and not for the purpose of gathering knowledge. But or just I sit and I breathe, I rest, or I sit on the floor and I rest. Or sometimes I make videos which like these, which do not demand a lot of effort, but which are nonetheless useful because they enable me to improve psychologically. And yeah, and what I've been doing for 20 months in a row, if I had to be honest with myself, uh, my ability, yeah, also just during the years 2020, 2021, in 2021 also I took an IQ test. There were three sessions, broadly 2 hours each, as far as I can remember, but it was a psychological examination. Uh, the remarks were excellent in terms of ability to perform cognitive tasks, the psychological ability to be self-aware, to improve every time I make a mistake, to be consistent, to be dedicated. I had an exceptional measurement of IQ in comparison to the norm because it was in the 98th percentile. But the psychological aspect, in a sense, my ability to perform was excellent as well. Yeah, it has given me a lot of confidence, this IQ test, because just being able to measure my abilities to be competent intellectually, it gave me a lot of confidence. Yeah. So yeah, but since the year 2022, so I'm well aware precisely that having a high IQ uh, is a great help, and that the individual, as such as an individual, has no influence over this whatsoever, because by the time that it's more or less stabilized, it's the result of partly genetic inheritance, partly the environment. And I've had the privilege to have throughout my life to have really excellent teachers in spite of the socialist system of education. I have had overwhelmingly almost consistently only great teachers in their various fields, with different personalities, different styles of teaching, but uh, in spite of the socialist aspect of education, they have been very competent, and I owe them, of course, a lot of my knowledge. Yeah, my psychological and social environment has shaped significantly the good aspects about my competence. Yeah. And so since the year 2022, I've been extremely dedicated. I have shared as much knowledge as I could. Uh, I have produced an enormous amount of content. Um, and here, just the intellectual aspect. I know that at some moment, when empirical scholars uh, they hear about me as an empirical individual, in a way, they will be forced uh, in most fields to acknowledge uh, the competence while considering the circumstances that I've encountered as a singular individual with all the limitations. Yeah, high school dropout, no formal higher education. Yeah, so yeah. Um, my ability intellectually to identify the sources of knowledge and to extract the knowledge, to synthesize, to reformulate with my own words in an intelligible way. This ability that I have is exceptional. If I think of myself just as an empirical individual, very few people have such an ability. Here, it's not to brag; it's just an aspect about me. Uh, I have an exceptional ability to identify the best contents, to study, extract knowledge, to incorporate the knowledge, and to eventually, although it hasn't been very successful quantitatively as of now, but to share the knowledge. Yeah. Uh, I know what I have produced over the past 20 months on an intellectual level as a singular empirical individual. I know, of course, yeah, it's precisely as a singular empirical individual. I know that the knowledge I just gather, world knowledge, I am privileged in a sense that I have had the time and the money to dedicate, etc., etc. Yeah, but my ability to produce good intellectual content, uh, just as a singular individual, if I just think of me as a normal human being, it's exceptional. Yeah. Uh, the circumstances have been very difficult because of the circumstances of the 21st century, the internet age, the interconnectedness. In a way, it makes things a lot easier to gather knowledge, of course, but it's also very difficult because the world is extremely complex. There are an enormous amount of information. Yeah. Um, yeah. And what I call the ethical aspect, namely trying to have an organized, ordered lifestyle. What I've produced under kind of difficult circumstances, it was not even my primary intention, but at some moment I just realized, well, to order and systematize an ethical way of living in a day-to-day life, it can be very useful, and it has been very useful. My ability to consistently be dedicated, to consistently apply the ideas that I genuinely believe are good, has been exceptional over the month, the past year and more even. Uh, the way I've tried and continue to try to share the greatest amount of knowledge, which I believe can be helpful, and if it's not knowledge, resources to try to Just here, I'm just talking about as a singular individual to try to help others because it's in everyone's interest that as many people as possible be in a position to help themselves and help others. The amount of, in a way, brilliant ideas which appear sometimes kind of dumb, but just for instance, the idea of distributing good books with supplies to encourage people who are not privileged economically or culturally to have access both to economic resources in terms of food supplies to help them, but also books who might encourage them to change their lifestyle for the better. It's a really a great idea of participating in civic life that I had never heard anywhere else. But I have done this consistently, and I know that it has partly helped a few people. The way I have radically changed my lifestyle and the way that I have been very consistent in applying all the good pieces of that advice that I've discovered, my ability to completely give up useless things, to focus on what is really important, to be disciplined, to be, in a way, minimalist and ascetic. I grant myself the right here and there to eat cakes or drink fruit juice or sometimes eat a good meal in a restaurant. Yeah, but other than that, I have a really minimalist lifestyle. Uh, I've been very consistent. The way I adapted and adopted an ecological lifestyle, a minimalist lifestyle, the pace at which I adapted and adopted this lifestyle, and the consistency with which I have continued to apply this, uh, it's been impressive in a way. If, yeah, I've had the privilege of being able to fully dedicate myself to this, yes, but yeah. What is difficult for me, just as a psychological individual, is that if I were just a normal human being without the if I were just a normal human being, of course I'm intelligent enough to know that I wouldn't have done all these choices for the better because I've received a lot of help from spiritual inspiration. Yes, but if I were just that's the purpose of this video: self-help, positive talk about myself. If I were just a normal individual, just me, Luca, what I've been doing, not always, but when I do really things that I know are good and when I'm dedicated, etc., what I've been doing consistently, even if no, not even if, but even during my moments of decadence over the years when I have moments when it's less and less the case. Over the past many years, it has been less and less the case, but for a significant part of my life between 2009 and 2016, so for a few years, no, actually, but no, but for 4 years after 2009, and then at various intervals, moments of the chaotic moments, but with the reason that I've explained, the psychological difficulty, the ups and downs, but there have been moments more or less long throughout my life where I was a little bit decadent for various reasons, or in the year 2020, 2021, while I was being very dedicated, very consistent in acquiring knowledge and skill and working to become a productive member of society, I had moments of decadence in a sense. I started to eat junk food more frequently, or restarted to eat junk food, drink beers a few here and a while, watch porn a few times. Yeah, it was a little bit decadent, but the other aspect was that I was in the process of becoming a normal, competent, productive member of society. So I granted myself moments of ordinary decadence, which, as such, uh, are okay. But yeah, if it's reasonable, it's okay to have a junk food of, once in a while. Watching porn once in a while. I no longer consider it to be okay, but if drinking a beer once in a while, okay, it's okay. If the person is a decent person in most other aspects of his or her life, it's okay. It's not, yeah. I have had tendency, a moment of religious fanaticism as well, here and there, but it's excessive. It's yeah, but yeah. So my ability just me as a singular empirical individual, my ability just if I just think of myself as just a singular individual, just a normal human being, just a normal human being, my ability to dedicate myself to projects, to invest myself fully, to be consistent, to be competent, actually, because I keep, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. I keep believing that I'm incompetent because uh, there are so many things that there are so many things to do in the world, and obviously, as a singular empirical individual, I'm not competent in most fields simply because it's impossible as a singular individual to be competent in everything because there's not enough time. Yeah, my ability, yeah, to clean my room, to order my library. Uh, I have spent an enormous amount of time over the past 20 months ordering my library. In a way, it's the work of an autistic person. It's partly fanatical, but it's also partly very useful. Yeah, but my ability to adapt, to change my behavior when I understand that what I've been doing was not okay, my ability to adapt, to improve, to be consistent, to try to make efforts. I know that trying, it's not always enough because the good intentions, it's not always enough, unfortunately. Yeah, but trying nonetheless, because here I have a need to behave as a Kantian, or very often to try to act, even if I'm not sure it's very efficient in terms of the effect that it brings, but just to feel good about myself. That's which Kant would probably say, if you are using uh, moral system just to feel good about yourself, etc. Yeah, but no, but sometimes just to do acts which I genuinely believe are good and useful, uh, when it helps feel better about oneself and gaining in confidence and in ability and building uh, moral strength, moral character by practicing virtuous acts, even if these are just small acts, but trying to be consistent, etc. It helps a lot. It's useful if it's driven by a principle that's really it's both useful and in accordance to a rule of morality. Yeah, I try to share resources with others variously to help them as I can with my limited faculties. But I always believe that maybe it's not enough, that always I have to do more. I'm very self-critical, I'm always doubting. That's why I make this talk, because I need to find inner confidence As a human being, just a normal human being, the overwhelming majority of the tasks that I have had to deal with, I have been very competent in sometimes kind of difficult tasks. Uh, but the problem is that precisely there are a lot of problems in the world. I, as an individual, I have problems of all sorts, and trying to solve everything, uh, it's exhausting, it's difficult. When I think of myself just as a singular individual, uh, if here it's not to brag, but it's just to have a little bit of confidence in me. If I had to dedicate myself just to one task, that's partly what I've been trying to do at some moments when I started to talk a lot about Austrian economics. I was just trying to prove to eventually others that by uh, dedicating a relative small amount of time to this topic of study, because I cannot study all topics thoroughly and because I have a lot of other things to do, but what I've been able to understand and to identify while studying very briefly Austrian economics, or in physics, I've studied one book about physics, I've read a couple of books about physics. What I've been able to do the same with chemistry, biology, I've read a couple of books. The ability that I've had to extract knowledge, to try to synthesize, to make things intelligible, while having to work on all other topics, plus the daily life, plus trying to do good, yeah, while knowing that it's difficult to trying to grow up psychologically, improving, trying to be intelligent, to be knowledgeable, to be wise, uh, to be competent for myself, to help others. It's difficult. I don't do this because not because I'm good, but because I do this for myself, because I want to I want to feel good about myself by proving to myself and to others that I can be competent and that I, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to be a human being. I know this. I have come to grow in having a lot of empathy for humans, and uh, I really have empathy for most humans, precisely because the human condition is actually very difficult. We as humans, we are here. We have an enormous amount of limitation with our body, which requires constant care, intellectual limitations, spiritual limitations, because humans, they don't really know what they are doing here. There are difficult external conditions dealing with the external environment with other humans. There are many limitations. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to be a human being. It's very, very difficult. That's why it's okay. It's okay to be a human being because it's difficult. It demands a lot of effort constantly. It's very difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult. and I'm frustrated. Not in this sense, not against anyone, not even against myself. I am just frustrated because I I make a lot of efforts. Most humans, they make a lot of efforts variously because the human condition precisely is very difficult. Yeah, but I'm always how should I explain this? In a way, um, I'm a very anxious person because I always I'm very self-critical actually. I always believe that I have to do more, and last year around October, November, I kind of ruined my health because of lack of sleep and the diet that I adopted. It was really minimalist in both cases, and I understood that it was excessive in a sense that it was completely counterproductive to yeah. So yeah, that's what I understood. That sometimes less is more. Yeah, yeah, and I can imagine that a lot of humans, other humans, they they they, they would like, maybe most of them, or I don't know, but they would like to have someone outside of themselves who acknowledges that they make efforts and that it's difficult. Yeah. And to have to imagine that there is an other entity which knows that you when you are making efforts and when it's difficult, and to imagine this entity who knows that I know that you are making efforts and I am grateful for that, and you are great. Sometimes to imagine this voice, to have the entity which might look down on those who ask themselves these questions and would say, I love you, you are making efforts, and even when you are tired and when making efforts is really difficult, I love you nonetheless. Yeah, to imagine this, it appeals a lot. Appeals. To imagine a voice who would say, I know it's difficult, and I know how difficult it is, and I'm with you even when it's difficult. And it's difficult to be a human being. Yeah, it's difficult. I have tried unconsciously and then consciously, because of the circumstances, to become competent, at least the minimum in most fields, but uh, yeah. With the the circumstances that here I, as a singular empirical individual, the circumstances that I've had to deal with for good and bad, I have tried to adapt to. Well, I will continue to do so to try to make the best use of resources. Yeah. I have a tendency to be very self-critical and to be depressed by all the things that I believe I could have or should have done better, or that's the curse of highly intelligent people. Very often they are very, very self-critical. Yeah. If I think of me as an empirical human being, well, I have done and will continue to do what I believe is right, try to do the best given the limitations. And in a sense, I know that this life on this plane of existence for all of us, all humans, of course, in a sense, it is very serious in some aspects, but in a way, the comforting aspect, it can be partly envisioned as a test, but not in a negative sense, in a sense, an opportunity uh, by being limited in this plane of existence as human beings. Each human experiences limitations, which of course brings a lot of frustration and all sorts of problems and suffering, but um, each human being um, does what he or she can with the limited ability that he is given in this plane of existence, and uh, given the limitations, the difficulty, the constraints, most of what most humans do, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I know this. It's pretty good. Because humans, they are thrown into the world. They have not really any clue of what they are doing here. It's very difficult. There are limitations of all sorts. Reality is often very frustrating. And given these circumstances, being a human being is very difficult, but it's also praiseworthy in a way. The experience, at least, because it's difficult, but it's challenging in a good way because, yeah, I improve constantly on many aspects, and I intend to continue to keep improving as long as I can. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me, the American ideal, it represents many great aspects, but one of them is competence. And in a lot of aspects, I have become competent uh, in many fields. Yeah, I have acquired competence. Yeah, I still have to improve. I intend to keep improving my skills as much as I can, as long as I can. Try to make the best of what is given to us. Um, yeah, yeah, I was never all bad, even when it was well. But I was not all bad, and I have not become all good. But I have improved. I have improved. Still have to improve. I still have the intention of trying to keep improving. But I have acquired competence in a lot of fields. I have improved. I'm grateful for all those who have helped me, directly or indirectly, and those who continue to help me unknowingly, but I'm really, really grateful. In the realm of psychology, I've used an enormous amount of help. Usually, women who are great psychologists, they are really helpful, and they have really a gift that men cannot have as such. There is really a difference for the good. The women, they can be great psychologists in a way that men struggle to be, in a sense, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. I can be competent. I can achieve. Uh, I can succeed in a lot of things. I can succeed. I have come to know this. Uh, I am becoming more confident because uh, I have made efforts, and I will continue to do so. I try to balance all the aspects to the best of my limited abilities as an empirical human being. There are things that I've done or said which are laughable in a derogatory sense sometimes, or which are laughable in a more comical sense. I can have a great sense of humor. It's okay to laugh at yourself. Sometimes laughing at oneself is a way to heal or to just yeah. But I am still willing to laugh at myself on many aspects. But I have become more and more serious in a good way. In a good way. I'm becoming more serious on the yeah. At some moment, I will let go of the doubts about myself, overcome the fear, grow in confidence, and I will make myself great again. Yeah. I've had to go through difficult moments, psychologically, physically, uh, but I have overcome all of them. And I have battled intellectually with probably the greatest mind ever, and it has strengthened me, one might say. Yeah, I have undergone 2.5 years of my life of extremely high level uh, intellectual training, one might say. Yeah, and I've understood that it was not enough, just the intellect. The other aspects, about my physical condition, since I've started implementing my healthy lifestyle in all aspects, the way I have improved physically is stunning in a way. My ability to walk on my feet. Um, yeah, I have praised Hegel a lot. Probably I will continue to do so, obviously, but at some moment, I will let Hegel praise me, and it's very difficult to receive a praise from Hegel, but which makes them even more valuable when they occur. Because I imagine that's, I'm in a good mood. I imagine the sinister and boring German metaphysician up in the clouds who looks down and says, "Well, it's okay, pretty good. It's pretty good." Uh, yeah, uh, yeah. Well, I will be great again.